Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
Why are you eating your microphone?
That's a dick.
Hey, Bonnie. Stop being a dick. Okay, we have a guest, all right?
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Holy smokes. This is going to be...
He's got two ring lights.
This is how it starts, Greg. This is it. This is it in the glory. This is the back end of the Cool Fireman Podcast, brought to you by Unky Seasoning and the Burn Box. The Burn Box.
And Bonnie's.
Go get your Burn Box.
Go get your
nugget. Hey, before we start housekeeping, because we're going to do housekeeping in the beginning, we're going to tell everybody who this fine gentleman is. Greg.
This is Doug. Nice to meet you.
This is Doug.
Oh, you mean Greg?
Yeah, I wasn't talking to you, but now I am, I guess. It's always all about Doug. That's all this podcast is. In fact, we might just change the name to the Cool Fireman Doug. Big City Doug.
Welcome to the casting couch with Big City.
Welcome. Yeah.
Greg knows what the casting couch is. Look at him laughing.
By Doug's first few comments, that we know how many beers he's had already. So, perfect. Brian, you've already met Greg. Greg, to the podcast people that are listening out there and can't see what the heck is going on right now because it's an absolute nightmare. Greg Rudiger, my friend, we met in Laguna Beach at a training thing where Greg was brought in as a contractor, and he taught us all about vertical ventilation, and we also did another class on AutoX. And Greg and I had a little bromance. All right, we ended up going to breakfast together at the Penguin Cafe.
Was there hand holding?
I think we might have went to.
If he went to the Penguin Cafe, there was definitely waddling.
I think there was second base involved. So, hi, Greg.
We were in Laguna Beach. So.
Perfect. Well said. His first few words, I love it. Yes. So I met Greg in Southern California, moved up to Washington for his family because he is a man, period. And since Greg is just like anybody in the world, gone ups and downs, just like all of us, and started RAD, Resilience Another Day. And I've been lucky enough to been talking with Greg about this for, I don't know, about a month now. Him and I have reconnected, and his ideas and his analogies and everything that he talks about health, wellness, and resilience is just on point. And I said, you know what, dude, you need to come on the podcast because A, you're a fireman's fireman, and you'll get along with everybody. Everybody will understand and relate with you, and you need to tell your story. And he was like, hell yeah, bring it on, baby. So RAD was born, Resilient Another Day, and so we're going to talk to Greg more about that. But let me just get through some quick housekeeping. Is that cool, Greg?
Of course.
Okay. So some point in this podcast, a secret phrase is going to be spouted. I will say, alert, alert. There's going to be a secret phrase. And so I'm going to say that secret phrase.
We have fancy sound effects now. You could play one.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know how to do that, but maybe we'll do that.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know what I'm doing. We need a producer for this.
He had one.
This is your job.
Oh, one job. Okay.
This is your job.
I'm kidding.
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to say a limited prize late. We're doing a giveaway. You have a chance to win a Cool Fireman Podcast tumbler from Station 3 Leather. We had them for our virtual Fill the Boot, and we weren't able to give that one away. So I want to give it away. It's taking up space in my closet, and somebody needs to be using it because it's a pretty gosh darn nice tumbler. Mm-hmm. All right. So we're going to do that. That'll be somewhere in the middle of the podcast. And then that'll be a surprise.
Let's tell them where it is.
And so one of the reasons, I'm not going to tell him anything, Brian.
You just told him it's in the middle of the podcast.
Somewhere.
Man, you guys are salty tonight. Salty. All right.
If I'm not jabbing, I'm not living.
That's a Cody Jinks song, by the way.
Hey, so every podcast we try to do Hey, get serious for a second.
Yes, sir. Sorry. Sure.
Every podcast we do, we try to have a moment of silence. And so we were reached out to by a Portuguese fireman So he's a fireman in Portugal, and he had just gotten off of a wildland fire out there. I actually looked it up. Pretty bad in their areas, about 37,000 acres. They had tons of firemen, but at least 4 of them died on this fire. And this was just recent. This is just in the past couple weeks. And so, amazing. Thank you for reaching out. He says he listens to the podcast all the time, which is awesome. I mean, from Portugal, boys, this is a large virtual coffee table we're talking about here.
Who'd have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? But we're going to keep them in our hearts. Unbelievable. Our hearts, our prayers, everything else. Trying to be serious here, and Doug won't let me. But hey, our prayers.
I want to give you his YouTube username, his YouTube tag.
Okay, go for it.
It's IVOGARANHA. Ivog Aranha. I'm not sure if that's his name but anyway, that's his user tag.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a moment of silence in memory, or for them, for those 4 firefighters at least. I think there might be more than that got injured on that fire. But let's go ahead and do a moment of silence to all our brothers and sisters that we lost in the last week or so, and of course, for those Portuguese firefighters. All right. Well said. Last thing, September is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so that's another reason why we're going to have Greg on here, because Greg's going to spout off some amazing stuff, what he's doing to spread his wings over whole lots of people. And so we got Greg Rudiger from RAD Consulting, Resilient on Another Day. What's going on, Gregory? And tell us a little bit about what you got going on.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks, guys, for having me on here. Super stoked to be here and to be able to share this. Little backstory. It's funny, RAD Training and Consulting was actually started because I teach a bunch of classes. I have for a long time. I teach at Rio Honda doing the Truck Academy, and then I travel and do a lot of teaching. And my wife's like, hey, you need a training company. So, of course, I was like, well, we're going to call it RAD. Why not? And it's pretty funny. People would ask me like, oh, RAD, what does that stand for? And I'm like, nothing. Like, it's just RAD. And I was like, you said it. Like, they were my slogan. And then I believe, and we'll probably touch this later, but I believe in there's no coincidences. Through my life, I've really learned to adapt and get out of that victim mentality. And a coincidence is pretty reactionary to what we're doing. And I don't like to live in a world of coincidences. So I say no coincidences. I called Matt, he was on my heart, and I picked up the phone and called him. We were talking about what he was doing, and we're kind of shooting the shit, and he was asking what I was doing, and I kind of said, yeah, man, everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to live to be resilient another day. And he was like, that sounds like RAD. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And he's like, no, it sounds like RAD. And I'm like, it is. And he's like, it sounds like RAD. And I'm like, oh. And it was that organic, and immediately from that moment on, I told my wife, I'm like, hey, this is Resilient Another Day. So what started off as me being, surfer from SoCal, and the way I live my life being RAD really turned into what my life's mantra is, and the way that I carry myself now to be resilient another day. And that's just really fed into everything that I'm doing now. And it's truly my passion and what's on my heart. And to be here with you guys, to be cool and to be a fireman and what it's all about. And if we can go out there and share that message with them, that people will actually understand, hopefully by the end of this, and see how deep we get into it. But, we can be cool. We can be a fireman at the same time by being vulnerable and being resilient. And that's really what my message is. And hopefully somebody out there needs to hear what I have to say.
Heck yeah, dude.
I like the vulnerable word. It's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. That's a good word.
Yeah, in fact, one of my things now that I lead with is vulnerability equals validity. And
absolutely.
Too long. When I was teaching fire classes, just background real quick. I'm 3rd generation. My dad, grandfather, both my brothers are all LA County. And so I'm 3rd generation captain. Both my brothers are captains. So you could say my blessing is my curse in the fire world when it comes to the resiliency and the things that we've done. When we can talk about vulnerability equals validity, it came through when my teaching too, because I wasn't there to tell how bitching I was, or to do this or to do that. I've been given a gift of teaching, and I've been given a gift of connection and relatability. And when I would teach AutoX, it was like, I'm not here to tell you my way is better. I mean, my grandfather did this before we were even an inkling in his eye. You know what I'm saying? Like, fires have gone out. There's nobody left in a car. So let's humble ourselves and let's learn from it. And I'm out there teaching, AutoX for the last 25 years. And, you get something that's like, hey, why don't we do this? And I'm like, oh, the same reason we're still hosing down aprons on Wednesday. Horses haven't shit on them in 200 years, but we still hose them down because that's what we do. Right. And so we can be vulnerable while we're teaching and doing this, right? That's the validity that we have. And now I get to roll that into actually helping people, not just cut holes in roofs or cut people out of cars, but actually to be mentally and physically and overall wellness resilient.
Dude, and it's funny that you say that, about your mantra, about being what it is to be a cool fireman. I know that you were, trying to relate it back to the name of the podcast. And it's, people ask us like, why the Cool Fireman Podcast? I mean, my story is always kind of stupid. It's like, we all of us got together, we started talking on a text thread, and then the text thread's name started just out of a joke, kind of became the Cool Fireman. And then from there, it just, blossomed into the Cool Fireman Podcast. But our thing is always like, we're not the cool fireman. You know what I mean? Like, we just strive to be the cool fireman. Like, who is the cool fireman? It's like everything that you're talking about. And like Doug brought it up, like, being vulnerable is not a bad thing. Like, we are learning that now in 2024 in the new fire service. Yes. Do we still wash down the apron because the horses used to shit on it? Absolutely. And one of our most famous quotes out there is, because we've always done it that way. Why are we still doing it? Because that's how we always done it. And again, firemen, they don't like the way things are and they don't like change. I mean, it's always the same thing, but I got to give it to different departments, and mine being one of them, of really making sure that everybody's okay. We have a peer support network. I would be hard pressed to find a department out there that does not have a peer support network within their department, which is amazing. It's okay to be, and I'm going to say this is the Katy Perry, whatever, we were talking before the podcast, how much we love Katy Perry. It's okay not to be okay. Like, we get it. Like, we're all in this together. We all see the shit. We're all in the shit. Even if you're not, you're still part of the brotherhood. You know what I mean? And it's okay not to be cool. And if there's resources, everybody's got resources, and we're a resource. And we've told people on this podcast, if you're having a hard time, if we've got Kenny, who's been on the show, the Operation Yellow Tape he's got going on, amazing. Everything that guy is doing is just for others, and it's just unbelievable. Humble, just to be on the same, to have him in my contact list. And, but we are a resource. And if you're having a hard time, you hit us up on all of our social medias. They're all there. The Cool Fireman, Instagram, whatever. Now you got Greg. He's a resource. He's there to help people. I know, Greg, you do peer stuff at your work, right?
Yeah, I took over, and I'm the head of our peer support team right now. And then we're actually working in Washington State. I'm lucky enough to work with our state council of firefighters, working towards a mental health. We have a behavioral health committee. And so we're working hard on getting a statewide app out there. So a connection piece, so we can connect people when they need help. So we're not trying to file through your phone or your thing. We're working on a way to hit a button and somebody's going to call you back, right? We're working on that. We're working on regional. I think I'm working in my county with the head of my peer support teams that we've actually kind of consolidated. We're going to run a county peer support team where we're sharing our peer support contacts, right? Super important. We have a department up here that I have more people on my peer support team. I got 32 people on my peer support team. They don't have that many people on their department. So again, it's very important when you have your peer support team that they maintain the culture of your organization, because some people want to talk to them, right? But it's important to have somebody that I don't want to talk to somebody here. The other thing that we've done is I've developed and we built a retiree peer support team, and I'm getting ready to launch it. You get to hear it here first on the Cool Fireman Podcast.
World premiere.
We're going to be launching our very first family peer support team. And so we're going to bring that in, and we're going to actually be able to, we have retirees that go through our peer support training. We're going to have family members that go through our peer support team. So, you got a kid that's struggling, you have a spouse that's struggling, you have, maybe your kid's struggling who's on the job. It's super, super important, right? Because the days of, when my old man would be like, leave work at work, leave the home at home. It's bullshit.
Right.
We're human beings. I can leave the role of being a fire captain at work, and I can leave the role of being a dad at home. You can't. Okay. That's a big misnomer of what we've been telling people. So we get down now with everything we're doing through our resiliency training and peer support is that we want good human beings. And if we have a good human being, then I get a good human at work. I get a good human at home. And now we're starting to dent it. Now we're making a dent, and we're seeing that. And some of the programs that we're running are starting to take off. And
I love that you're including retirees in that.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's a huge
Yeah,
deal, man.
Yeah, we've seen an increase, a 45% increase in retiree suicides in the last 2 years.
Wow.
And why is that? I mean, different areas. That's what we're getting. They're seeing an uptick. And again, what's the number one killers of cool firemen, right? Suicide, mental health is what's taking us out. And so, and that runs a gamut of all the things. And we'll probably talk about some resiliency stuff later. But it's really important. Like you said, the retirees, they leave, and it's not uncommon that I hear the same. The joke is most retirees ask them the dream they have, right? They're going on a call and they don't have their gear, or their rig left the station, or they're standing there in their chonies like, can't get on the rig. And there's a real identity that we have to do. And why is that? Because our job, what we do, it ain't a job, it's a lifestyle, right? It's who we are. And so we also have to just be that good human, and that's where the resiliency comes in, is that we can do things outside of that.
So many times we look at retirees is when they separate service is if they don't come to the station and hang out every now and again, they get forgotten. And there's this weird stigma about some of them in the upper levels of it. They go home and they don't have anybody to boss around. Well, maybe that's true, but at the same time, that's them at work. That's who they are. And we can't just cut that off and just say, hey, enjoy your retirement. And they're like, okay, well, now I got to go be like a normal person. And like you said, this is a lifestyle. This isn't just a job. This is a whole thing. You go to work and basically you have another family. Like people who work desk jobs, like this is not a thing for them. So when they retire, they go do, they spend plenty of time with their family. We don't. So we do. I love that you guys are including retirees in there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I said a lot to say.
I have a question. And I know you talked about it several minutes ago, but I want to go back to it because I think it was worth it. You talked about being vulnerable, and you kind of hinted on that. What value do you think you find in being vulnerable? Because I think that's important, and there may be someone who's listening here and sees that as a weakness, but I want to talk about that because I think that there's a lot of value in that. So where have you found the value in being vulnerable to your crew as a station captain? Because Matt and I went and did a class in Leland, and Matt's a new station captain, and I'm a desk jockey battalion chief. So it's hard for me to find it, but for a guy that's been a station captain for a while, I want the people that are listening to hear it from a guy who's been there, done that for a while.
Like I said, vulnerability equals validity, and what it really does is it makes you relatable.
Yeah.
It makes you human. It makes you real, right? And that's the one thing we sugarcoat. It's all about the human connection. Like I said, my blessings, my curse sometimes, right? Being third generation, I got taken home from a hospital, right? From being born to the LA County Fire Station, right? Where my grandpa and dad are working. I got a picture on there on one of my presentations, right? Being held up, and it was pretty cool. But being vulnerable shows everybody else that it's okay. It's okay. Like, hey, and my thing is, if he can do it, right? Hey, if Rudiger can do it, then it's okay. And I think that's something that a lot of times, at least in my world, right, is that we've struggled with, right? We struggle with in our world of being macho, right, of being bravado, of the old John Wayne, I'm just going to tough it out, have a beer, have a chew, go fishing, go get some waves, you'll be fine. And the reality is that's not true. We're a human being and we have emotions, and the emotions exist for us to be human. And if we don't acknowledge those emotions, whether we sit with them or we share them, we don't really get to be the true us. And people, and especially firemen, right? Your eyes may shine, your teeth may glitter, and you can't bullshit an old bullshitter. And when it comes to the fire service, they'll sniff you out real quick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to teach you to pull hose because I hate that. Right. I want to piss can and, I'm a truck guy. And the irony is I'm not a truck guy anymore. Now my passion is I'm going to be the captain. I want to be the captain of health and safety, what I'm doing and doing the health and wellness and sharing that. And I feel that all of these experiences that I have through education, through the job, through the hard calls, it makes me relatable. It gives me the validity to go in and say, hey, I've been where you are. And it's okay because this is where we can come on the other side.
I was going to say, give an example of that for the person that's listening. Give an example of that.
Hey, I don't know if this is the example you want to use, Greg, but we just talked about this today, did we not? About Simon Sinek. And Brian knows Simon Sinek, and I spoke about Simon Sinek at Leland. And I don't know if you want to I don't know if you even want to go that way, but with Simon Sinek. Do you know what I'm trying? Well, he just hasn't been there. Like what he says is very valid in all of the points that he says. But when he's talking to specific groups, especially firemen, it's, like you said, a fireman will sniff out a fraud in 2 seconds and they'll be like, dude, you never even stepped inside. Maybe you've been on a station tour one time, but you've never been in our shoes before. So how the hell do you even know what we're thinking? Everything that you're saying sounds great, but it's really when you try to make that connection to what he's saying, to the actual position, like the feeling that you have of working in a firehouse day after day after day, waking up from, if you're working a 96-hour shift, you're waking up at work 5 days, or 4 days. And it's just making that connection. Like all that stuff that you say is great, but sorry, I just kind of hijacked that question, but I don't know if you have a different example, but.
It's a wonderful example. I guess let me give you one that people say. So like I said, I was on the line. I was a truck captain. I take a lot of pride in what I do. Be in that position, right? It's a leadership role for me. And when I transitioned, I was diagnosed PTSD in 2018 in the state of Washington. So worker comp PTSD. I turned into an asshole. I was on the verge of my second divorce. My kid's not healthy. Some real toxic things going on. Severe alcohol abuse. To say that is to be honest. And, and, it's, but I didn't want to admit it, you know what I mean? And then when somebody says, hey man, take your benefit of get off the line, like take a hard reset, like you're running peer support. We need your help. And I did, I came off the line. So technically right now, I'm on light duty as a captain on days right now, working in the health and safety department. In my department, thank God said, hey, here's your passion, run with it. I mean, we're almost out running our siren on some of this stuff because it's so new. It's so like cutting edge on what we're doing and asking, but we have a department right now that's believing in it. And they're like, yeah, go. So when I get to sit in front of somebody and I give them, when I teach our recess program, right, and I talk about the stress continuum and I share with them like, hey man, I was almost on the verge of my second divorce. I had kids that weren't responding to me. I was lying to myself, like, no, I'm just going to have one drink, and it was tequila, right? You know what I'm saying? And I loved Coors. I mean, my whole garage was Coors, right? Yellow bellies for days. And when I get to share that with people, I've had people that I would never expect come up to me and say, hey, thanks. Like, I had no idea. Like, they didn't know I'm an asshole at work because that wasn't me, right? I'm happy. I'm fun. I live my life by faith, family, and fun. And I wasn't putting the first two in any sort of priority. And so me being able to share that, I've had people since come up to me and say, I'm down 45 pounds. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm sleeping. I'm regulating my sleep. I'm putting my priorities in the right order. And people come up to me and say, this is the best version of you we've ever seen. And they're like, oh, is it just because you're working out with Mike or because you stopped drinking or you're doing this? And then it opens the door, right? Just like you guys. All they got to do, Cool Fireman. Oh, that sounds cool. Open the podcast. As soon as they get that, set the hook, man. When they ask me why, I got them. Hey, I got them. Now I can be valid. Now I can be vulnerable. Now I can tell you. The vulnerability opens the door to set the hook so that now maybe something in their life, I can change. And if I can change that for them, right? Every person we touch, we affect 7 others. If every person we do that to, that's where the vulnerability comes in, Brian. That's truly where it is. It opens the door for me to open a door to their own heart.
And I think that's what I was looking for was, and I didn't know your story, but I knew you had one. And I think that that's what, and I wasn't asking maybe for that. And I'm glad you shared that, because I think that's what it is. Those folks need to hear that. They need to understand that validity, brings the trust. And so that statement about, hey, they'll sniff you out in a minute, it's no, they need to know that I've been there, done that, and here's why. And I think that's real important for everyone. And that's what makes it so rad, right? Like that's what makes it so rad.
It truly does. I've had a lot of people say, man, you don't have to be so, like, I didn't need you to tell me everything. Or it almost makes them uneasy sometimes, right? And what we know about that is that, yeah, it's uneasy for you because it was like me. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to admit it. That's a hard bridge to cross. One of my things is the hardest thing we'll ever have to do in this life is look ourselves in the mirror honestly.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Tell the story of the analogy or the metaphor of the trampoline and the springs. It's good.
Oh, so when we talk about resiliency, right? When I do a lot of talks on resiliency, I'll ask the room, especially the room full of firemen, like, how many of you guys are doing some sort of resiliency training right now? And you'd be amazed that 80% or shake their head no, or they don't raise their hand, right? And I look at my buddy, Mom, bro, you CrossFit twice a day, right? Does anybody here have family? Do you have hobbies? Do you have a dog? Do you have this? Resiliency comes down to intentionality and giving yourself the grace that I am doing this for me. And that what I'm doing is, if I'm hosing down the apron on a Wednesday, I'm doing the best I can. And this is relaxing. And I got the tunes on in the back, right? And then this is bitching. I'm taking pride in it. And then I ask them, resiliency for so many people, give me a definition of resilience. And so many people are like, oh, the ability to bounce back. And that's where the analogy came in. Everyone wants the classic Webster dictionary of the ability. Okay, it is. Okay. So something hits you, you're the trampoline, right? I drop a ball bearing on you, right? It don't make it, it just bounces, right? I drop a 10-pound bowling ball on you, right? I get a little bit more, and then we get some recoil. A meteor hits it, sayonara, trampoline, right? There ain't nothing you're going to do about it. I tell people, imagine now if you could take the proactive approach on that trampoline and tighten those springs. I put tighter springs on, that bowling ball is going to start to react like a ball bearing. So when those harder things hit you, I'm not going to have the impact. Sure as I'm not going to have the recoil as I go through it. And now I become relatable to people to give them a tangible example of, oh, okay. Because everybody knows what a trampoline is. Everyone's jumped on a damn trampoline with a bad spring, and everyone's jumped on a trampoline with a good spring. But imagine if you take the proactive approach in your life, right? This is where the resilient another day came in, to tighten your springs every day. So that when you get hit in the mouth, and when you get hit with these things, or when you get handed the baby that's not breathing, or when you pull the body out of the building that's crispy critter, you're going to have those emotions, and they're okay. It's just you tighten your springs to where, hey, a 10-pound bowling ball is going to feel more like, hey, I did 2-pound weight, right? Maybe not a ball bearing, because we are humans, and it's going to affect the soul. And that's really kind of the analogy I like to use when it comes to resilience, is having that proactive, because there's always going to be the reactive, but the springs are really what it is. Tighten your springs, we're proactive. You're just going to mitigate the rebound effect.
Yeah. No, dude, you can go so many ways with that, because whether you like it or not, that trampoline is going to get worn out, right? Over time, you live by the ocean, it's going to start rusting. And it's like, what are you going to do to fix it, to have your kids still have fun on that trampoline? And there's just like so many different avenues that you can go. And I love how you go into your octopus, right? And those are like ways that you can, and I'm sure you can go over the 8 different, I don't want to butcher the actual terms for it, so you're going to do it, but it's just ways to think about how you're going to make yourself more resilient. And by emotional, and by, with your family, being outside, environmental, like working out, that's going to make you stronger mentally, physically. And it's funny. I was going to go into a story, but I'm going to let you finish the octopus.
My other analogy. So we run a program. I was really lucky when I came on the days. I met a gal, Kelly Norton Gilchrist, out of Denver, Colorado. She was a clinician, worked for the fire department. She medically retired. She basically created and started a program called Recess, and it's resilience education. and continuing to establish a sustainable support system.
Whoa.
She named it Recess because we're all 12-year-olds, and who doesn't like recess? We're going to go play, right? And we make it fun.
Smart cow.
What I found, and it's really her that she's introduced it and shown it to me, right, was we covered the 8 areas of wellness, right? And the 8 areas of wellness are emotional, mental, environmental, financial, intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. And so me being a surfer and just a water dog, and I love the ocean, I was like, man, I use the analogy of an octopus. My buddy liked to use a wagon wheel. And he's like, oh, it's like a wagon wheel, and you're the hub, and there's all these spokes. And I'm like, no, wagon wheels are dumb. They break, and they're rigid, and they fall apart. I said, how about I like an octopus, because an octopus is a super highly intelligent creature, right? They're badass. It'll get the size of a dime. It'll spread out this big, and, you know, they're pretty rad. 8 legs, right? There's, again, no coincidence. Those 8 legs are what supports you. Each of those legs is one of the areas of wellness. The beauty about an octopus is one of those legs gets cut off. Hey, maybe your financial leg gets hacked off. Well, the other leg's got to make up for it. But what does that leg always do? It always rejuvenates.
Regenerate.
Right? And in each one of those legs, there's hundreds of suckers on there, right? You got all those tentacles on there. Those are all the different things on that one leg that support the leg that supports you. So when you look at things like environmental, going outside, walking in the grass, sitting in the sunshine, social, right? We talk about occupational. We know that's the big one. Emotional, mental. That's a huge one in what we battle with, right? My wife, Carrie, she runs a wellness spa, and we do red light therapy and cryotherapy and massage and things like that. Getting in there and doing my physical stuff by red lighting and doing it. What we find is that we're somebody's, and we go through this Recess program. It's a new program, and we launched it. We were the first ones to run it at South County non-clinically. 4 to 5 week program. We put you through it. It's like a choose your own adventure story. It's pitching. So we can sit down and you tell me your story and what's going on, and I hand you this book, and we cover the 8 areas of wellness. And you know what I find every time? Somebody says, man, I'm struggling at home. You know what they realize? Well, they're struggling at home, but maybe they're financial, maybe they're intellectual, or maybe their environmental areas we're waning to, because it's a summary of the whole. We can't just take one and be like, oh, work sucks. I go back to that again. You can't do that. That's not how we operate as human beings.
Yeah.
You got to take it and the beauty of the choose your own adventure is maybe there's things that you don't even know you like, right? I had a buddy tell me, he's like, I didn't even know what equine therapy was. But a lot of people maybe know until you go out there and you hang out with horses, right? He's like, this is the greatest thing ever. And so part of my adventure in life as I went through this, it was again, my wife has really been my guide to get me out of this, and she stood by me. God knows why. That's the reason why. She was like, hey,
amen.
Why don't you do this? And I'm like, I'm not doing the woo-woo shit, right? I'm not doing red light. I'm not doing meditation. I'm not doing breath work. Get out of here. She's like, hey, moron, you already do. Like, you free dive, you surf big waves. Like, what are you talking about? You stare at the ocean for hours. You like do all layers underwater with weights, and you look like an idiot at the pool. I'm up there in Washington with weights on the bottom of the pool, jumping up and down. People are like, what are you doing? Again, it was the intentionality and giving myself the grace that I'm doing this for me. And then what did I do? I went out and became a performance breathwork coach, and now I get to do that. I became a certified couples. I'm a counseling educator, counseling coach. That I get to go out and help people with that too now, and it's helping me more than anything, right? That I get to share that and I get to carry that on. So, we call it the missing link, and we've been very fortunate to share it. But this Recess program is really what we found is the missing link, because it unlocks. And Kelly's done a great job. It looks like a comic book when we hand it to you, and people say, "Man, I don't even know what to do." Well, maybe instead of turning to what we call shitty coping mechanisms, let's turn to a healthy coping mechanism. Maybe we turn on the Good Fireman podcast. Maybe we just go outside and we stand in the grass. Maybe we open up. I don't even like crossword puzzles, but I'm going to do one. I'm going to pick up a book. There's so many things that we don't know what's actually resiliency. And so we open this up and we've unlocked a whole new world for people. And it's incredible that I've had people say it saved their life, it saved their marriage, it saved their job. And again, you go back to the vulnerability, man. I was in a place where I was going to kill myself. And I said it in front of my family, and that's how bad I was. And now I get to save people.
Dude,
That's awesome.
I've told you this before, Greg. It's like you have an absolute gift of, and it's not a bad thing, but it's like we're like we connect with people on a different level, and I think all of us have that gift. To be honest with you, that's why we're here doing what we're doing. Why do you? I mean, one of the coolest questions that we ever get is, why did you guys start the podcast? You know, we can't say it again because we've already said it a million times on this podcast, because we love talking about it and we truly believe it, because we're genuinely in this to create a conversation all around the world. We're not even talking the country. We've got firemen that are in Portugal that listen to our podcast. Yeah. And Greg, you have a special gift of relating and being genuine, because you're just a great guy. You have great words. The way that you say it is very believable, and because it's so genuine. And so, I mean, you coming on here has been an absolute blessing. I want to ask too, there's a lot of us dumb firemen that listen to this podcast. So I'm just curious, like, what if you had, money was no object, what does it look like in the fire department? Like, what's your dream for the department?
My dream is to get this resource program out all over the country, and to get this into the hands of everyone's peer support team, right?
Yeah.
Hoping that. It's funny, on my business card, it was funny because it said truck company operations and AutoX and rescue swimming and, CPR first aid. And I'm like, nope, it's performance breathwork, it's peer support, it's resiliency coaching is really my passion. And, to get a solid peer support team that you have the trust of your organization, right? To get this resource program out there to people, to give people the tools and the avenue to go out there and say they're not okay, right? I think the other thing, Brian, back to your question, the other thing too is that there's no way to skin a cat, right? There's 100 ways to get out of fire service, right? I'm not going to tell you this is the only way. That's why we give you the resource program and say, go try it. Let's throw 20 pounds of shit at the wall. Hope 2 pounds sticks, because it will. I promise you it will, right? And then the power of that is that it just gets it out there, right? And it puts it in your hands, because we don't want, that's the problem that we've had in the past, is that we have people like, you mentioned it earlier, you walk into the fire station, EAP. Why does EAP fail? Because you're bringing in a family counselor into a fire station. It doesn't work. We're taking this and building it for the first responder world. It's relatable. And we put it in the hands of your peer support team and say, here, believe in each other, believe in trust, build that love in that organization. But we're also very honest. We don't get you don't have the option tomorrow when you're at work, right? We took an oath. When I walk up to the front door and you hand me the baby that ain't breathing, right? I'm lip locking that thing, and I'm going to go to work until that job is done, because we have to compartmentalize. We're the special operations of the civilian world. We got to compartmentalize. We got to operate. Mm-hmm. If we tighten the springs ahead of time, after that call's over, we build a more resilient culture around the firehouse, around that coffee table, then it's okay for people to be like, you know what, I'm not okay. Mm-hmm. This one really hits hard. And then we can build that in. And my organization has just been incredible with that on giving people the ability to go unavailable, to go home, right? We're very good about that, and we're really building that peer support team. I mean, that would be my goal, is to get that sort of belief structure into it. And I know that there's a thing like, we still battle our generation and older, right? Like, wow, you don't need that, Well, decompression breaks are a real thing. We take time to decon, right? We'll go out of service and decon and strip down and go do what we need to do, right? Because cancer is a real thing, but mental health is killing a lot more of us than cancer is. And I want to have that ability to decon our brain. And that's what recess and what the resiliency, that's really what I'm after is that's my dream.
That's amazing. And kudos to your organization for being, so forefrontal on this. I know it's probably not even a word, but that's the one I used. But I mean, it's amazing to have that understanding and be like, hey, they saw you struggling and they know what they have, because they know who Greg Rudiger is. And they were like, take this, and this is your passion, run with it, and help people, help us, help our organization. And I'll be 100% honest with you. What? Wee woo.
I'm trying to get you to do the alert.
Oh yeah, we gotta do the. Oh yeah, so the special phrase the secret phrase for the podcast. The phrase that pays is
The phrase that pays.
stay rad. Stay rad. If you go back to our post of prize alert on Instagram, comment stay rad in the comments, like it and share it, and make sure you're following the Cool Fireman Podcast on Instagram. And we'll put you in a raffle, and you can win a tumbler, Cool Fireman Podcast tumbler by Station 3 Leather. So shout out to Station 3 Leather, who gave us a couple of tumblers for our virtual Fill-A-Boot. No, what do you mean? No, it's not a raffle. No raffle. It's just
you said raffle.
Oh, whatever. Names are going to go into a hat. We're going to pick a name. So
What? No,
spin that
the
wheel.
first person who did it.
No, it's not the first person that did it. And
Okay.
if whoever does it, all
Sounds
the
good.
people,
Give me the
all
email.
the people that do it through Monday. I guess this is Doug's thing. Through Monday.
I don't know.
I'm
You
just
trying to
kidding.
help.
I'm just kidding you. So everybody that does it, shares it, comments, stay rad. I'm going to put all those names into a hat, and the one I pull out of it is going to win a tumbler. That's the
There
thing.
you
So
go.
stay rad. Stay rad.
Here's the
Now I
thing.
just completely lost my train of thought.
It's okay, Greg.
I-
I am on my department's peer support team, and I would love if you would share that recess with us, and I will broach that subject at our next meeting. How about that, Matt?
Bingo.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's what this is doing. This is getting the word out. People are going to listen to this all over the country, different fire departments, and whoever else is listening. I don't know. There could be corporate
Portugal.
people listening to this. Portugal's listening to this, but not even the fire service. I mean, I was going to say this way back when, but Brian brought up something previous, and then we just kept talking and stuff. But it's not just firemen. This is a man thing, dude. I mean, this is in our blood from centuries ago, or of just we're the man, like me, like woman, me eat food. And men have never been a vulnerable species. Like, that's not our role on this earth. That's how it's
What we
always
do.
been. And so that's what we do. We puff our chests up and we, like, give me food, and we're just not good at expressing our feelings like women are, but now we're finding out it's fucking killing us. It's effing killing us. And if you don't want to be that
Well,
person,
you already said fucking, so just say it again. Don't say effing now.
okay.
I mean, you
I'm
ruined
trying
it.
to,
No. You're not trying to nothing. You ruined it. Just let it out.
Here we
Fuck
go.
you,
Grab
Doug.
the other rant.
It's a safe space.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
so anyway, so it's just,
Watch
it's
the
extra
bullet.
Free.
if you're listening to this and you're not a fireman, don't think that you can't relate to what Greg is saying, what any of us are saying,
100%.
because this is a corporate thing too. Men go home, they hit the bottom of the bottle because they're stressed. They don't know how to express their feelings, and they're just like, fuck it, right? I'm just going to drink to the bottom of this bottle because what does that do? It makes me feel better, makes me forget about it, makes me less stressed, because that's what alcohol is. It de-stresses you. You don't worry about it. And then the next morning you wake up, you feel like shit. Then you go back to work to where you feel even shittier, and then you come home and do it all over again. So it's not okay. It's not okay. So fucking do something about it, right? And that's and I'm a hypocrite. I'll 100% tell you right now, I'm a hypocrite. So everybody knows on this podcast, I had a heart attack almost 2 years ago, October. And it is the number one hardest thing to do is just to start. I've had multiple people come to me, call me, chiefs, friends, call me and say, hey, have you reached out to anybody? No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Have I done it yet? No, I haven't. So I'm a fucking hypocrite. But I'll be honest, and we're still on the podcast right now, but Greg, you've helped me. I mean, just, talking to me about your story and what you're doing about being resilient. I'm being intentional now. I am, because I've listened to you. So I'm going to go ahead and say this, that we're all better people. Us three plus you, Greg, and all the people listening to this are better people now after this 4 minutes of talking to Greg about being resilient. Because the one thing that you should take away from me, these are just my words, is that you already are being resilient. Like, you seriously are already doing it. If you're working, you walk your dog around the like what you're saying, Greg. I'm just reiterating, but this is what I'm taking from it. It's just more like me being intentional for helping myself, and that's it. And maybe it doesn't start with, talking to somebody and crying and professing all your terribleness that's going on in your life. Maybe it starts with, getting sun, walking your dog, maybe less drinking, like all this good stuff, trying to be healthy. Anyway, I think that and that's how I wanted to end the podcast, is by saying that to you, Greg, that we're all better people for listening to what you're saying and continue, go ahead, Brian, but that's all I was going to say.
I want, I think the majority of people that are on the show, whether they be hosts or whatever, live in an environment or are on departments that are around where they have peer support. And so, Greg, I want to talk about real quick, if we can. I know we're at the limit, right? The cup is almost full, but let's talk about for the people that don't have that network. How do they go about starting it? How can they reach out to you? Or how can they get you? Not that you can go around the country, or right, but like, how can they connect with you or someone like you in their community, so that way you or someone like you can be a resource to them in their community?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I'm sure you guys will post my stuff, but if you get a hold of me, radtraining10@gmail.com. Phone calls, text, just get a hold of me, right? I love phone calls. I'm a phone call. My wife's like, you love to talk on the phone. As you can see, I do. I think there's more emotion when I get to talk to you and I get to hear your voice. But emails, text, anything that I can do. Again, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. Okay, I can send you my SOGs. I can send you the programs. I can get on the phone with you. I do that a lot. I get on the phone with people and I help them connect. We're working at the state level. We're working with the ISF on getting databases built out for here peer support teams across the country. Right, here are clinicians. Here are resources. I'm working right now for my county. I'm the area. They made a truck guy in charge of a website. Right? I think it's going pretty good. That I'm making a website that I'm sharing so that people can go on there. scfwellness.org. It's my department's website, but I called it Snohomish County Family Wellness because I want it to be a bigger picture. And there's resources on there, and it talks about some of this stuff. So I'm just really trying to do anything I can, Brian. Anybody wants to reach out to me, I am open. Conversations.
You got socials?
And
are you putting little blurbs out on socials of little tips? And if so, how do they find you?
That's funny. I'm at StayRad10, stay_rad10 on Instagram, and on TikTok I'm at stay.rad10. Apparently I couldn't make those things match, but I'm working on it.
I got you.
I will say this, Matt, we had a connection. We were talking, and I'm just going to say montage, and he's going to laugh because there's no coincidences. But it checks something off for him. I'm not one to put myself out there. Again, it goes back to that. I don't want to fight the imposter syndrome, right? But I think it's important. My wife encouraged me, Matt encouraged me. You guys have really encouraged me being in the platform you are, and I'm honored to be here. So I'm putting myself out there. I've been putting some little snippets out there of wellness and sharing my stuff because, like you said, Brian, I hope one person hears this and one person calls me and one person reaches out, and I'm stoked, Doug. I'm already gonna get you the recess stuff, and Kelly and I. That this is really where our heart is and where my stuff is, and that's my goal. One day is not to travel the country teaching truck operations. My goal one day is to travel the country teaching resiliency and vulnerability to a fire service that really needs it. We're making the turn because of guys like you, and I'm just honored and blessed to be on this podcast and have an avenue to share this story. And I hope one person out there hears this and you're okay and reach out to me.
Well, the one person thing, Brian, kind of tying into your question, it doesn't take a peer support team to help that person. Yeah. If you are the kind of person who's receptive to what's going on right now in this episode, for instance, be that voice of, hey man, if you guys need something, holler at me. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't take a team to do that. Back to being a good human, just be the good person to say, hey man, I know y'all ran a tough call. Is everything good? I know my department, we have the G2 app, so we know calls that go on all the time. We had a 4-month-old or so cardiac arrest a couple of shifts ago. And about an hour and a half after the guys got back in service, I was like, hey man, do you guys need anything? Granted, I'm reaching out from my peer support team's perspective, but even if I wasn't on that, it doesn't take much to do that. Just be that good person to reach out to your brothers and sisters and say, hey man, are y'all good? Like it's okay to talk to me. What's going on?
And I think
that's how peer support teams start too.
At the root of it, it's peer to peer. It doesn't take a team to be peer to peer.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go with it. Is Greg? I think that I would be honored to follow somebody like you to have that accountability, right? Like, I know that vulnerability piece of it. And I think we all worry about putting ourselves out there. I just did a podcast where I talked about my social media journey. It just aired on the 24/48. And it was one of those things where that was one of the questions that they asked me. They were like, why did you start doing it? I was like, well, my kid wanted me to. And then all of a sudden I started putting stuff out there and it was crap to begin with. And I was worried about it because of what it was. I had to be vulnerable and say that, but then over time it got better. But that's what I'm going to say to you and to everyone else who maybe has a similar story is you're willing to tell your story. Somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to hear it bigger and louder than this podcast. I mean, I would like to think that we have a big footprint, but my God, social media has so much larger of a footprint, and just a 20-second, hey man, it's okay to not be okay. And I'm here. Like, that's all it may be. And I think that would be really cool for you guys to do. Yeah, Jackson, they said hello. He said hello. He's probably doing homework or something.
No.
Oh, mom's
I appreciate that. Yeah, check it out. Like I said, at @stay_10, @stay_rad10, and then @stay.rad10 on TikTok. But I put them on all three platforms, and Matt's been helping me a little bit because, and
because you're a truck guy,
like you said, Brian. Yeah, and you know what, Brian, like you said, I don't give two shit. Like, I want the algorithms to get out so people can see me. But I'm not here to get like
nobody who's watching you for that cares about it being perfect,
right?
Because they're not.
No, right. I just want to be
perfect in that moment.
Well, I will tell you, that moment is perfect. If they're watching it, then that moment is perfect. And
if it's needed in that moment, it's perfect, man.
Yes, 100%. Greg, I believe God called you to do what you're doing right now. I do believe that. And I think that, everything that you have is there. We talk about a lot of times about doors being open in the fire service. I give the analogy, God puts us in places where he's already opened the door. You don't have to force it. We want to get our tools out and we want to try to break it down, but God gives us these opportunities.
You got to try before you pry, baby.
Right.
That's the number one rule.
And that's it. And, you talk about a reset. It's not about necessarily about the reset. It was a reset for you, but it was really about being called to a purpose. And that's what I think it is. So I know we're trying to wrap it up, but I just want to say thank you for being willing to go where the water flows you, and takes you. And I thank you for that because it's been a blessing for me tonight. I know some people right now that are going through challenging times, and I'm going to be sending them this podcast to listen to. So I think they need to hear it.
All right. Well, thank you, all you guys. I think that it was a good roundtable conversation. Of course, Greg, I'm going to say it again because this is how I did want to end the podcast, is that everybody here and everybody listening is better for listening to this podcast and being on it. So thank you for being vulnerable and telling your story and telling us a little bit about how to be resilient and what that means. I don't know. We all need to start doing it for ourselves, being purposeful, and it's all great stuff. So that is a wrap for the Cool Fireman Podcast, episode number 75. Can you believe it? So follow us Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and we're all on all platforms, whichever one you listen to. Make sure you are subscribed. Greg, do you know how to roll us out of here? No,
I'm going to tell you. Hey,
you're going to stay rad.
That's it, baby. Hey, stay rad. That's all you got to do. Stay rad.
Roll it, Gigi.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!